Flow is technically defined as an optimal state of consciousness. It refers to those moments of total absorption when we get so focused on the task at hand that everything else disappears. And throughout, all aspects of performance, so mental and physical, go through the roof. In flow, parts of the brain aren't becoming more hyperactive, they're actually slowing down or shutting down. Your sense of morality, your sense of will, your sense of self, all that shuts down. One of the most prominent examples is the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. That nagging, defeatist, always-on voice in your head turns off in flow. We feel this is liberation, right? We are free of ourselves, creativity goes up, risk-taking goes up, and we feel amazing. Besides neuroanatomical changes in flow, there are neurochemical changes, right? The brain produces a giant cascade of neurochemistry. Besides being performance-enhancing chemicals, these are obviously all feel-good drugs. As a result, flow is considered the most addictive state on earth. Another thing that those neurochemicals do is they augment the creative process. So on the front end of the flow state, when you get norepinephrine and dopamine, they're tightening focus. Norepinephrine and dopamine do something else in the brain, which is they lower signal-to-noise ratios. And so our ability to link ideas together is also enhanced. We're taking in more information, we can link it together. Anandamide, which is another chemical that shows up in flow, doesn't just promote pattern recognition, it promotes lateral thinking. Lateral thinking is the linking of very disparate ideas together. In studies run by my organization, the Flow Genome Project, we've found creativity is increased 500 to 700%. When people want more flow in their lives, the number one thing we can tell them is that flow is a 4-part cycle. You have to move through all 4 parts of the cycle before you can return to the flow state itself. What we've discovered is at the front end of the flow state, there's a struggle phase. You are loading, then overloading the brain with information. For a writer planning a new book, when you're diagramming structure and things like that, it's very unpleasant as a general rule. From struggle, you move into release. This literally means you want to take your mind off the problem. So what happens in flow is we are trading conscious processing for subconscious processing, which is extremely fast, it's very energy efficient. So to do that, you have to move from struggle, you have to stop thinking about what you were trying to think about, basically. You go for long walks. Building models works very, very well. And then, by the way, one of the only things that you can't do to move through release is watch television. But once you move from release, underneath the surface, neurobiologically, there's a global release of nitric oxide. This flushes all the stress hormones out of your system and replaces them with kind of feel-good performance-enhancing neurochemicals. You're in the flow state itself. This is the 3rd stage in the struggle. And on the back end of the flow state, there is actually a recovery phase. So you go from this amazing high of flow to a very deep low that shows up in recovery. A lot of this is that all those feel-good neurochemicals have drained out of your system. And one of the most important things in recovery, you need some emotional fortitude. You have to basically hold on to your emotions, not get stressed out at the fact that you no longer feel like Superman. If you have to move from recovery back into struggle and you're bummed out at no longer being in flow, it's very hard to get up for the difficult fight of struggle that follows.
Learn more about Stephen's book at riseofsuperman.com.